Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my Yap classroom, because it's morning, it's not nighttime like it normally is, so I thought I'd do something different. As always, I'm Dan Pixel. I have a fake doctorate in emotional damage and thematic narrative in fantasy and gaming. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Rather than curating my own topics based on what I want to talk about, we are going to talk about this comment and the comments surrounding it on my video about the ending of Life is Strange Double Exposure. Before we begin today, I do ask that you approach everything that I say with a very open mind, because in my opinion, what I am trying to impart today may be among some of the more important things that I can communicate about art, about narrative craft, and about parsing it. So to kick off this conversation, I decided to pull up some reviews, and I'm going to read them to you, and I'm going to see if you agree, and it sounds like you do. So without further ado, I'm going to read some reviews from episodes 4 and episodes 5 that were written after the reviewer played the episode, but before they played the next one. Okay, here we go. So it says, Episode 4 is the most inconsistent episode so far. The 2 hours between the excellent prologue and finale advance the story slowly and spend most of its time rehashing what it's already done better before. The story and choices swing wildly from believable, lucid to incomprehensible and gross. At times, it's just plain cheap. Max's major choices here don't suit her behavior, are shocking for the sake of shock value, and that's really disappointing. There's a serious tone problem. It quickly ditches its theme and references for a dirtier, scarier vibe. I enjoy these things, but they fit together like Tom Harris writing Nancy Drew. I have a lot of why questions, but they're the kind that result from poor storytelling, not good mystery setup. Some of them make me want to learn more, but most of them make me wish it was more sophisticated than its sloppy story was. And this is that same reviewer after they finish Chapter 5. The tone more than ever swings wildly in Episode 5. When a scene turns suddenly from relatable issues to harsh negativity, it suddenly feels like an episode from a different series. This stands out most with the cartoonish villain of Episode 5, whose dialogue with Max is almost entirely terrible exposition and cliches. This story feels like two incompatible pieces sloppily sewn together with moments of gut-wrenching greatness in the middle. Each of the endings, chosen independently from any previous decision or world state you've made, feels separate, like two separate conclusions to separate stories sharing only a similar theme. Those are both pretty, harsh clips from these articles, and the reviewer rated the game 6 and 6.5. And if I asked you right now if you agreed with those, you'd probably say yes, given there seem to be some similarities with your comments here. So what if I told you that wasn't about Double Exposure at all? Both of these reviews that I just read you are from IGN's review of Life is Strange the Original, first published back in 2015. And this reviewer was not an amateur, nor was this their first time out of games journalism. They were at the time a 4-year veteran and had covered multiple narrative games before, including but not limited to the Telltale Walking Dead series. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not, I didn't play this as a gotcha. I did this to point out that the things that you see as problems in the new game are problems that have existed in Life is Strange since conception. Now that you have the context for that interview, I think you and I would both say that we probably don't necessarily agree with the things that they said about the original game, right? However, even years down the line, as I replay currently as I am the original one, there is a kernel of truth to the things that they say about the original game. And even in disagreeing with several pieces of his overall review and what I consider to be a far too low score for the game, I do understand where that reviewer comes from in a lot of their critiques across their entire 5-episode reviews, some of which are more positive than others. And a thing to know about reviews versus what I would call critique or real criticism is that while both have a level of subjectivity to it, critique has a standard as well. A review can be as simple as I liked it or I didn't like it, but a critique must be able to quantify it either in a qualifiable way or be able to directly tie evidence to assertion. This is because just like the crafting of art itself, as I talk about in this video you commented on, reviewing, or rather critiquing specifically, must be done with the same kind of specificity. Your comments on my critique are a review, and they are your opinion, and you are every right entitled to them. But I do take a bit of an issue with the kind of hyperbole that you are using, which has no purpose to build or inform, but only demean. And I am not suggesting you are demeaning me, but the language that you use, the hyperbole of some writing by someone who's never been to an English class, that is the only reason you use that kind of turn of phrase is to demean. And you demean because you have an emotional reaction to it. And what you subconsciously or consciously want to do is to make the creators feel the way that you think they made you feel. The reason that I can look at this and see all of these different things thematically contained within it is because I know that the people who created it are skilled professionals who have a track record of good application of their gathered skills. It's worth pointing out that this is, in fact, the same narrative team that got the first ever video game Peabody, like the first one ever. I think it's somewhat easy to underestimate or assume incompetence when something occurs that we don't agree with because we have already made different paths and conclusions in our head. But I would encourage you to maybe understand that there is a level of skill and expertise, even if you feel like you don't see it. And I do certainly feel like a team with the number of decorations that this particular team has is certainly worth a little more faith in their actual ability, even if you don't agree with their decisions. And while it is certainly worth keeping in mind, and as I have sort of hinted at in a lot of my previous videos, is that producers do carry a ton of power, narrative teams are then forced to utilize their skills to adapt to that, which is a unique skill in and of itself. One that doesn't just take a lot of effort, but also does take a lot of ability, not just in the skill of craft, but also in the skill of collaboration. In conclusion, it is a well-known sentiment on certain corners of the internet that you should never ascribe malice to what can simply be incompetence, but I'd like to take that a step further, is that you should never ascribe incompetence when there is evidence to the contrary. And that if you find yourself asking a question of, why was this done in this manner, and it is not a amateur team, you should ask yourself why they chose to make the decisions they did, and you will be able to find new things underneath. That the most vital skill that I could possibly ever pass on from my experience to that of another human being is that of curiosity. And we may never agree on this particular point, but I do hope that you take away the lesson of curiosity.